All right, let's talk about the hottest role in town, the forward deployed engineer. Well, maybe not this town, I don't know, but definitely in Silicon Valley. The role is up nearly 800% compared to last year. And it's pretty much every AI company, the bottleneck is not the product anymore. It's not the code, it's not sales, it's not the capital, it's the forward deployed engineer. So that is the new bottleneck at AI companies. Right, slides. That's me, perfect. So my name is Maarten. I'm one of the co-founders at Soda. We work on the context side of things. We have customers like 2K Games, Disney, HelloFresh. We typically work on large volumes of data, and that goes into AI, so we help optimize that quite significantly. If you're interested in learning more about our latest project, which we're releasing this week, it's called sodastraw.ai. Have a look. It's a very fun thing. It's giving access to all of your company data to AI agents in a very, very easy way. It's a problem that we faced ourselves when building with AI agents. I saw a whole bunch in the previous presentation. Some very good ideas there. Anyways, let's talk about the forward deployed engineer. I'll start with a story. This is a few months ago. We did a POC with a company called, well, let's call them AIB. They're in the airline industry. Can't really tell their name, but whatever. So one of the things we help them do is we help them solve data duplication. That's one of the problems that they hand to us, and they've created all this beautiful synthetic data. And they sneakily put their own, use their own company name in there with a couple of variations. This problem happens because you have many different source systems of data. You maybe have 20 SAP instances. Sometimes a long name gets cut off, and then you try to run a BI query, or you try to tell your AI agent to do something about, or to tell you something about AIB, and then it doesn't know really what it is, or it doesn't know everything about it, right? So. Anyways, what happened during that POC, it was very standard, our usual competitors, but increasingly we get more synthetic data, right? And we ran our algorithm, our ML matcher on it, and we rolled up these 5 records, but they had put in a few more. They had put in AIB Mumbai, and then also one with like the name in local, like a local Hindi. So yeah, we didn't find it. But luckily, we had a forward deployed engineer on this POC. So he immediately said, oh, well, that's easy. Let's change the ML matcher. Let's add a new feature. And we rolled it out the next day, and we showed the result to the customer, and they're like, oh, that's great. Now now that solves our problem. And just a few days ago, we learned that we won that POC. So not saying that was the reason, but it's definitely a reason, because many of our competitors, I don't think they're doing this. And your ability to, in the last mile, change something for your customer, I think is very, very important. Especially because we're building more and more intelligence for our customers, and that intelligence works on the context and the data of companies. So what's changing? Well, the last mile, I'm going to look here because I can't read my slide from there. The last mile, it is really now the product, right? It is, we used to very often just say, oh, here's a product, here's the APIs, everything works. If it doesn't log a bug, we'll fix it. But ultimately, what has changed is that with the advent of AI, especially, and I'll go through some of the drivers as to why we have this role today, is that the people who talk to customers and the people who ship codes, they're converging more and more. You'll say, well, an engineer speaking to a customer, is that going to work? Well, definitely a certain subtype of engineers, yeah. And more people can become engineers with AI as well. It's very, very easy, and it's going to get easier over time. There's actually 3 pressures. Those were the new slides, but I'll talk through all of them. So the first thing is really that intelligence. So it's the product side. So your specs, if you write specs, they actually don't touch. You do that in isolation. You don't do that in your customer environment, and that becomes increasingly a gap that you need to fill. So it's increasingly, even if you're building AI agents to work within the environment of your customer, well, yeah, they'll connect to the tools and the data in that environment. So how are you going to bridge that gap? You don't know that data when you're developing internally or where you're doing the first spec, so that is a problem. A second force that pushes it is that buyers, it's like their expectations of software has changed. Like they don't want some 9-month implementation program. They want outcomes, not even products. They want their problem to be solved, and increasingly more. The third thing that is pushing into kind of this need for forward deployed engineers is that engineering, and that's going to be slightly controversial, is largely a solved problem. Yeah. We can build much, surely we'll still make mistakes like wiping a production database through an AI agent somehow. Yeah, these things still happen, but that will happen less and less. We just don't have the infrastructure around it to make sure that these things don't really happen. And all of these are pushing towards like having a forward deployed engineer. This term, by the way, if you weren't familiar with it or didn't know, it comes from this company Palantir. Palantir, yeah. So, but they did this right, and it's really working very well for them. They really focus on that last mile delivery, and we'll talk a bit like how it's different to all the roles, like how does it actually work in practice, etc. in just a second. First and foremost, it's a product engineer. What's a product engineer? Typically, it's a type of engineer that is not super deep into the weeds of one thing. So they typically do a number of domains. So they'll cover maybe front and back end. They do a little infra. They do a few things, and they're okay putting a product hat on. So they are okay actually having a session with Claude to talk about what the spec should be like, what this requirement looks like, how they can generalize that a little bit. Like I want to understand the business context, why people are asking this, etc. That's in general, you see, we get more and more generalist as AI is just making its waves through every industry. It's not professional services, right? So let's be very clear. It is, so it's not we're going to scope this project and we're going to deliver and it's going to be this timeline. No, everything is changing so fast you can't even project it anymore. Like it's not helpful to build a Gantt chart for a year long. That just doesn't make sense anymore, in my opinion. It's also not customer success, which has its problems of not always being very technical, and then definitely also of not being able to actually change a product or show something how it could work for your customer, other than something they might hack together, which very few actually do, in my experience. And then it's also not a solutions architect, which is a bit more about the process and like the best practice with your tool and the architecture of the company and like how that fits in. It's also not really that. So what is it then? How does it work? How have we deployed it? I mean, everyone will probably do their own thing. Everyone will experiment with this. But this is mostly based on what we've learned from what everyone does in the industry, and then we gave it a try. And we just started, so honestly, we just started with it 2 months ago, and we have our first now implemented, like forward deployed at the customers as well. So we're learning as we're going as well. First and foremost, we involve the FDE very early so that they can get the context of the customer, and they need to be able to do at least 5 customers in the end, at least. Otherwise, they'll too single-mindedly focus on one. They're not going to be there all the time as well. They're going to live in multiple contexts, so they're basically going to mostly be there as part of the kickoff or maybe the POC, the kickoff moment. They'll get all the context as what's happened within the project, why somebody is doing this. And then they'll resurface at key moments in time, like there's a milestone delivery, we're doing a big celebration at the customer, we went live, well, it's perfect. A few weeks before that, they should be there to help out, iron out all the kinks, to help solve all of a number of problems that they still have. And they productize what they learn. And here we need to take a caveat, because you're not going to be building always something which is fully production and platform ready as part of this customer engagement. That makes no sense. So you can kind of see it as the FDE puts the gravel road there. They create an iteration of the product, maybe in a branch. They create a version where it actually solves the customer problem. And then they do hand it over to your platform engineers, who you'll always have these engineers that work on your core platform, really the heavy, hard, difficult stuff. And there's still going to be a handover with most of this stuff. Sometimes it's small, it's totally fine. You can completely push it to production. But it also creates that muscle of, hey, is this 100% a feature that all of our customers need, right? Because if it's customer specific, you risk of becoming a custom developed software type consulting company, or like I don't know how these companies are called. But customer specific things is not okay, but fine tuning for a customer, probably okay. But this feature ultimately needs to be rolled out to all of your customers. Otherwise, it makes no sense to do it. Definitely don't do the left. So in our company, engineering reports into products, and all of our FDEs are the people who built the product. They're part of engineering, and we put them at the customer. It's a little scary for them in the beginning, but it is happening, and its first signs is actually working very well. Yeah, it's very important that they have been trained, they've been evaluated by your engineering team, so they know that they could actually build and deploy some code. It doesn't have to be the hard stuff. They don't have to be the top tier engineer necessarily, but they have to be better in speaking to the customer, wanting to do some more of that product management work, etc. So that's, I think, very important. If you put them on the left, that's just not going to work, right? They're engineers, so we have to. They need to report into engineering and maybe into products. Yeah, that's also possible. So what does that mean? Yeah, what does it all mean? I'm sure maybe some of you have experiences, and we can have a few Q&A or on it, but. Customer success will kind of, in my opinion, bifurcate. The top people in customer success, in my opinion, will move into this largely, or especially if they're top because of their technical ability. If they're top because of their commercial instincts and commercial ability, maybe they should be an account manager or an account executive. And I think the bottom side, like where it's really more about meeting setting, about like running a QBR, about, my opinion, there's lots of automation there in the end. That is, you can automate a lot with AI, and maybe that's just a role that's going to be less and less necessary. Yeah. I think the product management job will also change. It's, to me, still somewhat unclear how exactly that will change. I think the product manager still will live very close to your core platform and really make sure that everything these FDEs do, that there's a clear fit into the product strategy, that it is something that is repeatable, matches against all of the other conversations we've been having. So like a checkpoint to make sure that we're not going adrift and moving away from our strategy. And I think some of the hiring math will change as well. And this is for me an important asterisk with the FDE model, is that I don't think it will work for every company, right? If your product is super repeatable, like, I don't know, $20 a month, you do this one specific thing, it doesn't have to be embedded in a company, or it's super simple, right? Everyone's immediately on board, then I don't think it works. But if you start having deals, like if you have more of a platform-shaped product, then I do think it's going to become super important. And if your engagements, I say 250K, it's probably worth it already as from 100K. Some will immediately see, oh wow, there's a revenue opportunity in that too. And there is, right? Ultimately, I think the moat that you're building is, like, you're giving up margin for moat, pretty much. Like your software margins are way bigger if it's subscription of software than it is for people. But the moat that you're gaining is that you're going to go way faster building what your customer needs compared to a PLG company. because you'll literally be at the customer, understanding their problems in much more detail, seeing them firsthand and immediately building for that and putting that into a product straight. So you're gonna learn faster, and that in and of itself is a moat. You're gonna build better relationships with customers. I have a little kind of small tangent on that. There's this company called Bank New York Mellon in the US. They're very unique. They're special, but I like their case. So they are on a mission to eradicate all of their software vendors, and they want to keep 7, the golden 7. Everyone needs to go. And they're building either everything in-house or everything with one of their 7 partners, like Palantir. And they're really on a mission, so they don't allow any of their people in their company to still speak with a product company. Banned. So I think it's that all that to say is that the relationship with your customer, the contracts that you have, incredibly important. Deepen them, and deepen them by learning what the problems are in the current implementation, fixing that, and doing that in real time. Yeah. Right. So yeah, the last mile used to be where your product ended. Right. It used to be at the APIs, but that era, in my opinion, is completely over. I think that's it. Yeah, I have a little after slide for maybe when this discussion starts, because, but that was it, and then we have a few more minutes for any questions or if anyone wants to contribute anything.
Yes, we do have time for any questions. Does everyone? Yeah, perfect. I'll give you the mic. Go.
Hey, thanks so much for the inspirational demonstration of using forward deployed engineers. Aside from the obvious question of how do I get a job as one, how do you incentivize and motivate forward deployed engineers? Do you give them a quota for upsell? Is it about achieving some outcome for customers? What's the best way that you've discovered for this?
The honest answer is we haven't had to cross that bridge. We put all of our engineers into the office 2 months ago. We basically said, guys, everything is changing. We're going to change everything. So and we need everyone to be as flexible as possible. We'll figure it out together. And we have seen that people naturally emerge, that actually want to do this. And then you also have to. So those that really don't want to do this, then we had to make the hard decision, are they really, really, really good? And everyone else goes. So it's more of a, right now I think many companies have too many engineers. So this is kind of a good moment as well to say, well, look, your job's changing. You're gonna have to do different things. It's gonna be that or it's out.
Amazing. We have time for one more question. Oh.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm curious, where do you see it change when it comes to maintenance and bug ownership? Where does that fall?
Yeah, we'll probably still have to see that. But look, engineering velocity has gone up insanely, right? So I think the core will be does it fit your strategy, your direction, is it repeatable for everyone? And then I think it becomes less of a problem, really. AI is there to code for us, so.
Amazing, thanks. Another round of applause for Maarten.
Thank you.